I would like to call the meeting to order. So I would like to greet our virtual and in-person public forum guests. The guests who signed up to speak virtually are in the waiting room and can hear, and depending on the device used, see the meeting. The guests who signed up to speak in person are here with us in the boardroom, and we've got a lot of people tonight. When we get to the public forum agenda item, your name will be called in the order it was received. And for the guests, the Zoom meeting host will bring you into the main room to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. Please turn on your camera and microphone for the in-person guests. And please come to the microphone at the back of the room in the center aisle if you're here in the room. So I believe we will have 2 minutes for speakers tonight. You may not yield your time to another speaker. And once your speaking time is finished, the virtual guests will be ushered back to the attendee waiting room, and the in-person guests are asked to return to their seat. You may also choose to leave the meeting at that point and watch the YouTube live stream. At the end of the public forum segment, we will continue with tonight's agenda. If you did not have a chance to say everything you would like to say, please email the board at board.ed@aps.edu or call us at 505-880-3729. And so tonight we're also using a closed captioning feature, and the captioning will also be visible on the YouTube live stream. For those speaking during the meeting, please speak clearly so the closed captions are as accurate as possible. Hopefully my captions are coming out really accurate. So I would like to invite everyone in the boardroom to please stand with us if you're able and join in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you're on Zoom, please keep your microphone muted. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. All right, so I don't think we're going to do a moment of silence, is what it looks like. So Ms. Yeager, may I have a roll call, please?
Danielle Gonzalez.
Here.
Barbara Peterson.
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Here.
Josefina Dominguez.
Here.
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Here.
Courtney Jackson.
Here.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Here. So Board of Education meetings are hybrid meetings with community members and public forum speakers having a choice to attend in person here at the John Milne Community Boardroom or virtually at www.aps.edu. Presenters and recognition guests will attend virtually. Public forum, either virtual or in person, is part of the Board of Education's meetings on the first and third Wednesday of the month. And regardless if public forum speakers attend in person or virtually, all speakers must sign up for the public forum on the APS website the day of the meeting and before the start of the meeting. Please be sure to visit the APS website to check the agenda. You may participate by attending the meeting in person, watching the live stream of upcoming meetings by clicking on the live meeting stream button on the main board page at www.aps.edu, emailing your input, comments, and questions to board members at board.ed@aps.edu, or calling us at 505-880-3729. All right, I catch my breath. I know I'm adopting board member Gonzalez is just like, let's say it as fast as possible.
We're in that.
So our first item for consideration and action is adoption of the July 20th, 2022 Board of Education meeting agenda and approval of the April 6th, 2022, April 20th, 2022, and June 15th, 2022 Board of Education meeting minutes, and the May 23rd, 2022, and June 22nd, 2022 special Board of Education meeting and minutes. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to move for approval with the exception of pulling off of the consent calendar items AD1, JI, I think that's an I, JI3, and JL1, just for some clarification on those 3 items.
Any other discussion? This is Crystal, so I'll second.
And then also to move off consent, I don't know if you got that, but 8A1A and 8A1C. And then also, I think it's important, Member Peterson, is there some simple strike-throughs and formatting changes to some of the consent agenda items that were made that Ms. Yeager has? So there were just simple extra words, et cetera, that were in there that needed to be approved as well.
So I think if there's no, well, Madam President, what's your pleasure?
Still trying to catch up with all the ones that we want to take off. So, because we've got AD1, the firearms prohibited, C, the student possession of a firearm, correct?
Yes,
And JL1, which is the student drug and alcohol use.
correct. Those are the ones that
And just for clarification
Yes.
purposes, we're going to clarify. So we're just taking them off consent so that we can have further discussion. Is that what I hear? Okay.
Did Peggy want?
I think I got Peggy's. I got all of hers in there as well. So I was just clarifying that we got all of them. Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
This is Crystal, second.
All right, Ms. Yeager, can we have a roll call, please?
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
yes,
Pablo Romero,
Yes.
Josephina Dominguez.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes, and now we'll have Member Jackson lead us in the recognition of student and staff.
Okay. Welcome to our recognitions. Our recognition this evening is Joshua Gutierrez. Mr. Gutierrez and several family members are here with us in the boardroom. Other family members and friends have been invited to watch the Board of Education meeting on the live stream. Joshua was the recipient of the 2022 New Mexico School Boards Association Scholarship. The purpose of the New Mexico School Boards Association's NMSBA scholarship program is to encourage and promote the attainment of higher educational goals for students who have demonstrated a high level of leadership, academic achievement, community involvement, and extracurricular activity participation during high school. Nominees must be a graduating senior who plans to enroll in a post-secondary educational institution. Each of the 89 school districts in New Mexico nominated eligible seniors, with the exception of boards whose nominees were awarded scholarships in 2021. Scholarship winners receive a $1,200 check to be used for higher education fees. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, some information about this remarkable young man. Joshua Gutierrez has demonstrated his leadership skills in a variety of ways. He was a member of the Student Senate, where he served as an officer and was instrumental in planning and evaluating school events. Joshua participated in the Best Buddies program, helping his best buddy, a special education student, get involved in school programs and events and find comfort and support, which demonstrates Joshua's personality. Joshua also helped with the Freshman Jumpstart event, welcoming incoming freshmen to the school, answering questions about high school, showing them the campus, and demonstrating expectations. He naturally sees the need and goes to fill the need. As a participant in the Upward Bound College Preparation Program, he received a Student of the Month award for being helpful and taking the initiative to organize tutoring sessions for his peers, helping them move from failing and frustrated to passing and successful. In online classes, he often found himself breaking the ice and getting the conversation started during breakout sessions. That's hard to do. Joshua is a natural leader and is willing to help those around him fully engage and succeed. Joshua volunteered at Roadrunner Food Bank, the New Mexico Storehouse, and Big Jim's Farm. Joshua helped local animal shelters and volunteered at Explora. As an Explora volunteer, he helped set up experiments and helped students get excited and involved. Joshua has a servant's heart and is willing to help where he can to make the world a better place. As a first-generation college-bound student, Joshua has taken extra steps to gain information and resources to make the transition to post-secondary education. Those steps include being a member of Mathematics, Engineering, and Science Achievement and Distributive Education Clubs of America, DECA. MESA is a pre-college program that prepares students for college and for careers in math, engineering, science, or technically related fields. As a member of MESA, Joshua played a part in hosting visiting speakers and planning and implementing activities for diverse communities, such as an elementary carnival at a local elementary school and mini STEM challenges against other students at various high schools. Being a member of MESA also inspired Joshua to take 4 years of architectural design classes. DECA prepares emerging leaders and entrepreneurs in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. While in DECA, Joshua competed at the district level where he qualified for state 2 years in a row. In part, due to his experience in DECA, Joshua has also started his own business, Next Level Auto Detailing. Check out the website. Joshua was also active in the Valley Academy, a smaller learning community within Valley High School, designed to meet the needs of academically high-achieving students and promote community service. He was also a member of National Honor Society, which required a 3.5 GPA for continued membership and regular attendance at meetings and events. During COVID, Joshua volunteered to record videos of himself reading children's books. Teachers at Valley High School feeder elementary schools use the videos during virtual story time. In this way, not only did he encourage his own academic journey, but the academic journeys of elementary students as well. As a member of the varsity basketball team, Joshua served as the point guard and in a leadership role as coach on the floor. He also played in the Amateur Athletic Union, AAU Basketball League. Joshua helped plan and create science experiments for several local elementary school science nights. One of his favorite experiments was helping students create oobleck, a non-Newtonian fluid that behaves like a liquid when poured, but acts like a solid when a force is acting on it. Joshua is the recipient of multiple awards, including the Golden Scholar Medal Award for maintaining above a 3.5 GPA for 4 years of high school, a third-year letter for Valley High School Academy, and a third-year letter for the National Honor Society. Joshua won runner-up for the Judges Prize at the Valley High School 1 Minute Film Festival. He received the All-District Academic Basketball Award and the Valley High School 4A All-Metro Academic Basketball Award. Joshua was also a 2022 Selfless Senior. Joshua is planning to study industrial engineering at New Mexico State University. He is a hardworking, kind-hearted leader who is passionate about both helping others and all things STEM. Joshua, would you please come up to the microphone near the front of the room? Right here. And would the family and friends of Joshua please stand? Yay. And Joshua, Board President Yolanda Montoya Cordova has something for you.
Well, I have the distinct pleasure of being able to present you with a check and a certificate for all that you've done. That's like amazing. I don't know where he found all the time to do everything that you've done, but you've made us proud. And I'm so excited that you're going to stay in New Mexico. Yay, because we need you here. And congratulations, young
Thank you. I
man.
appreciate
Great
it.
job. Do you
Thank
have a few words you want to say?
No.
No. Congratulations, family. Well done.
Go Vikings.
Go Vikings.
Little ad hoc there. It's not in my script. Josh,
I didn't sing the fight song.
oh. We have time. Joshua's recognitions will be displayed on the Board of Education recognition website, and I encourage everyone to check it out, as well as his webpage for his business, right? That concludes our recognitions, and congratulations, not only to you, but to your family as well.
That was awesome.
That was great.
All right. Public forum. Continue on.
I want to welcome our public forum guests who are in the attendee waiting room and in the boardroom. Whether you are here with a request for the Board of Education to consider, provide information, or just see how the Board of Education operates, we want you to know that you are welcome. The Board of Education has established rules for expected civil behavior during the meeting and public forum. As part of the process to sign up to speak tonight, you were asked to read a copy of the procedural directive that outlines those rules for expected behavior. The presiding officer will enforce these rules as appropriate throughout the meeting. The Open Meetings Act, NMSA 1978, Chapter 10, Article 15, requires that agendas contain a list of specific items to be discussed or acted on at meetings. Due to these rules, public forum is not a dialogue with board members. Public forum is an opportunity for the Board of Education to listen to you and to hear your comments. In just a few moments, your name will be called in the order it was received. Guests who signed up virtually will be brought into the main virtual meeting room to speak by the Zoom host. When escorted into the room, please have your audio and video on and be ready to speak. Once your speaking time is finished, you will be ushered back to the attendee waiting room. Guests who are here to speak in person are asked to come to the microphone in the center aisle at the back of the room to speak when your name is called. When you have finished speaking virtually or in person, you may choose to leave the meeting and watch it on live stream. Tonight, there are 13 speakers. So each speaker will have 2 minutes for comments. You will be directed to please complete your sentence quickly at the end of your time. You may not yield your unused time to another speaker. If you felt you were not able to convey your message, please send your comments to boarded@aps.edu. In addition, for those who are here in person, there is a representative from the Student, Parent, and Employee Service Center who is here to help with specific situations. At this time, Mr. Gonzalez will introduce the speakers. Sorry.
Thank you, Board Member Jackson. Our first speaker this evening is on Zoom, and her name is Brianne Potter. Asking her in the room now. Brianna, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. You have 2 minutes starting right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am an Albuquerque native. I'm a graduate of El Dorado High School. I also attended Hoover Middle School and Oñate Elementary School. And now my 5-year-old daughter and my 7-year-old son are starting at Oñate this fall. I have a deep love for Albuquerque. I'm a UNM law student now, and UNM is also my alma mater. I also have a deep love for children and their safety. And although storing guns safely may seem like a no-brainer to some people, hopefully most people, right now it's still estimated that 5.4 million children live in a home with at least one unsecured firearm. That's an increase of 800,000 since 2015. This information follows record gun sales since the pandemic began, including a reported surge in first-time gun owners. Clearly, there's a need for added education to parents and caregivers so that children are kept away from unsecured firearms and so that their friends and teachers at school are as well. I urge you and plead with you to think of my children and all of the others in New Mexico and Albuquerque, and to include the proposed language in the APS handbook. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is in the room, and it's Miss Judith Rice. Right here, ma'am. When you begin speaking, you'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Judith Rice. I'm a retired teacher. And after the last meeting, my phone just blew up. And because I'm retired, I guess they figured I'd come up. The parent responsibility part. Doing the homework, work with the child, role model, engage in literacy. That's real condescending. A lot of parents aren't able to. They don't understand math today. So role model, I think every parent tries to be a good role model. Engage in literacy. Well, we have a lot of parents that are illiterate. So I think we're stepping on toes. I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent, and no, I find that quite insulting. I think a parent's responsibility is to get their child to school. As a teacher, I can't tell you, parents would get their kid to school by third period, by second period, but a lot of times they miss first period. Kids need to be there for the full day. So I think as far as parent responsibility, I think would be get their kid to school. As far as parents being involved with the education, all of my parents were involved. They had my email. They had my phone number. They know when my prep was. They could talk to me Zoom. They could talk to me any way they wanted to. As far as curriculum.
Ms. Rice, I'm sorry, Ms. Rice, I have to stop you. That's over 2 minutes, so please wrap up in one sentence.
Okay. You've managed to insult every teacher in APS. Boom.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is in person, and I believe it's Micah Glidwell. Forgive me if I spoke that wrong. When you begin speaking, you'll have 2 minutes.
Hello, members of the board and audience. My name is Micah Glidewell. I'm 23, a resident of Albuquerque, and I am a transgender man. I'm here to talk about the Parents' Rights and Responsibilities Act. When I was in high school in Las Cruces, my parents accepted my bisexuality. Many of my friends were not so lucky. They were berated, dead-named, neglected, and abused by their families. They came out because it was safe for their friends, people like me. When they were accepted at school, they thrived. At home, they were miserable. When I was 19, I became the first of my friends to come out as a trans man. I thought it was safe, but I was wrong. My mother, with no previous history of abuse or transphobia, levied accusations at me. You're killing my daughter. I entered my worst depressive phase since I realized I was gay at 14. I wanted to end my life. Through my friends and through UNM, I persevered. I was lucky to have that support system. Not every school-aged child is so lucky. If I had still been living with my parents, I would have ended my life. I did not speak to my mother for 6 months. She did not repair our relationship for 3 years. I am lucky that my mother put in the effort to understand and love me as her son. Not every queer kid is so lucky. Parent rights are important, but they should never come at the cost of their children. Outing children to their parents endangers them. If a child is old enough to articulate that they are queer, they are old enough to decide when to come out. I chose to come out and was told things that irreparably damaged my relationship with my family. The wound may be healed, but the scar will be there until I die. I was lucky that their harm was not a fatal blow. Not every queer kid is so lucky. I don't want any child to experience what I did at 19. I was too young to be told that. Please protect queer children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is in person, and I believe it's Dee Baca. Is that correct? Ms. Baca, you have 2 minutes when you begin speaking. Oh, you want me to move that for you? Here, let me move that down for you a little bit. Sorry. Well, actually, you can just pull it. There you go.
Good afternoon, President Montoya Cordova and members of the board. I'm here to ask you to vote yes to adding secure firearm storage language to the Family Student District Handbook. My name is Deborah Baca. I'm a volunteer with New Mexico Moms Demand Action, and I'm retired from Albuquerque Public Schools. Board Member Muller Aragon, you represent me. I am your constituent. We know more than half, 54% of gun owners actually do not lock their guns securely. This means that guns are laying around where children and youth are able to get their hands on a deadly firearm. This access creates more gun violence. Making secure firearm storage information accessible to Albuquerque Public School parents and caregivers via the district handbook will save lives and is a good first step. Moms Demand Action encourages the board to do more to spread this public safety information message further. A few suggestions. You could post a Be Smart link on the parent portal or on the APS website under school safety. As a reminder, Be Smart is designed specifically to help parents and adults normalize conversations about gun safety. My goal as a Moms Demand Action volunteer is to reduce gun violence. This school board can do the same by giving parents and caregivers secure storage firearm information. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is in person, and it is a Mr. Verlin Coker. Mr. Coker, when you begin speaking, you have 2 minutes. Hold on. Hold on. I don't know what happened.
I think it's just.
Okay, there you go. I'll start over. I'll start in 2 minutes now.
Hi, my name is Verlin Coker. I'm here in response to a couple of the statements made from the last meeting I was at, which was on July 6th, I believe. There were some statements of the aforementioned parental rights and responsibilities policy that I take issue with. There's this idea that every parent loves their child. This isn't strictly true. We do have parents in this city who would rather their students be dead than be trans. That is the reality of our situation. We have a 14-year-old who was recently burned to death by the police, the same force you have outside here. And so this notion that our students are protected and loved in every direction isn't true. And you do not have the luxury to live in this fantasy world where that is the case. Another point to help echo the one of the previous speakers, the idea that literacy is the responsibility of the parent is something that is not true. This is the responsibility of the schools. That is literally their only purpose. As a matter of fact, you have them longer than the parents do. This is your responsibility. There's so much dereliction of responsibility from APS that I've seen over the years that it's honestly quite shameful. Some of you were there when, goodness, this was back in 2019, I believe. We had a string of 8 student suicides in a single year at a single school. And here we have even more policy pretty much designed to strip the powers from student counselors. You're making this problem worse, and this has been consistent in the 4 years that I've been around the school board. I deeply ask that you start to do better, and I will be here next board meeting to make sure that you're held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coker. Our next speaker is in the room. It's Margaret Horan. Horan, okay. Ma'am, when you give me speaking, you'll have 2 minutes. Is that too high for you?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, as you said, my name is Maggie Horan. I'm a retired speech language pathologist. I'm a volunteer, as you can see, with the Moms Demand Action Group. I'm emotional about this issue. You will hear a number of statistics and facts tonight regarding guns. 60% of teens suicides in New Mexico are gun suicides. Guns are the leading cause of death for children in our state. Locking up guns can prevent much of this. We have at least 2 gun murders in APS this year and an increased gunfire at schools. It's my hope that this school board is as saddened and appalled by this information as I am. Putting information in the parent handbook regarding secure guns at home is hugely important to the safety of our children. Let's open the door to encouraging and helping parents keep their children safe at home and in the schools. Please vote to add the secure storage of guns in the APS parent handbook. It's a reasonable and hugely important step in reducing unnecessary gun injuries and deaths in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is on Zoom. It's Miss Melissa Maes. Melissa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. You have 2 minutes starting now.
Members of the board and Superintendent Elder, I am Melissa Mays, a teacher at Lavaland Elementary. I've been the tech teacher since 2016. Like many tech teachers in the district, my position was cut for the upcoming school year. In a district with one-to-one devices, it is imperative for students to receive explicit instruction and consistent support in technology. In my tech classes, students learn basic and maintenance skills such as mouse management, keyboarding, common operation of menu functions, how to use and navigate Google Workspace, and have multiple opportunities to discover, create, and teach, engaging students on all levels of Bloom's taxonomy. With the ever-changing demands of student work being completed using technology, it's vital for students to be proficient working in multiple platforms. With a school-based tech teacher, classroom teachers have the ability to advance and enrich curriculum without having to introduce and teach the platform itself. As APS continues to plan for the success of the computer science implementation, we need to continue to support students at the school level by ensuring every student receives computer science instruction delivered by a technology teacher in their school. As many of you can probably relate with your Alexa, Siri, Apple Watch, and Fitbits, these digital assistants are far more capable than what we typically ask, playing music and telling time. Having a site-based tech teacher evens the playing field for all students to have required technology skills to be successful in the 21st century world and not be limited to the knowledge and skill level of their classroom teacher. I ask you to ensure students receive consistent technology, computer science instruction, and support for the device we issue them by allocating schools with an FTE specifically for a technology teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And our next speaker is Elaine Miller. You have sorry, ma'am, you have 2 minutes starting now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Elaine Miller, and I've been a New Mexico resident since 1968. I've been a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for 5 years and the local Be Smart lead for 1.5 years. I would like to address the topic of firearm suicides. 6 out of every 10 gun deaths in the U.S. are suicides. That's an average of 65 deaths a day. In New Mexico, approximately 33 children die by gun violence each year, and almost half are suicides. Most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. Only 4% of suicide attempts without a gun result in death. When a gun is used, that number increases to 90%. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among young people, and nearly 3 in 4 firearm suicides by young people take place in or around the home. Over 80% of firearm suicides by children age 18 or younger involve a gun belonging to a family member. These deaths can be prevented. 4.6 million children live in a home with at least one loaded, unlocked firearm. Suicide is often an impulsive act. Policies and practices that focus on disrupting access to firearms in times of crisis have been proven to reduce firearm suicides. I am asking you to vote yes to adding secure firearm storage language to the Student Family District Handbook. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And our next speaker is Kathleen, I believe it's Mosley. She is on Zoom. Kathleen, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Thank
Ma-
you.
You have 2 minutes starting now.
Good afternoon, board members and audience. Our community lost a student, Benny Hargrove, this year when he was shot and killed by a student who got a hold of an unsecured gun. I'm a member of Moms Demand Action and also a retired community health nurse and asthma educator who worked with school nurses for over 14 years to reduce deaths and absences from asthma in Albuquerque. I am alarmed that gun violence is now the leading cause of death for children, killing 4,368 children in 2020, according to the Center for Disease Control, CDC. More than 10 times the number of child deaths from asthma. And according to Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence, 40 children died in 2019 from gun violence in New Mexico alone. And New Mexico had the 4th highest gun death rate in the country. 70% of school shooters obtain the weapon from home. Schools and their health staff have an ethical responsibility to be aware and promote awareness of safe gun storage. Thank you all, and please do vote for including gun storage education as part of the handbook.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in person, Mr. Tobias Goodwin. When you begin speaking, you'll have 2 minutes.
This is a bit short. One moment.
Do you need help with it or are you good?
I'll just stoop a little. It's all good. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tobias Godwin. I was an APS student from the first day of kindergarten to high school graduation. I'm also transgender. I appreciate the goal of trying to get parents more engaged with their children's education. However, I cannot support the parents' rights and responsibilities policy as it currently stands. As a trans man who began questioning who I was within the halls of Sandia High, this policy poses a danger to queer and trans students by potentially outing them to homophobic or transphobic family. I am fortunate to have accepting parents. Even still, I didn't come out until college because there is always that lingering fear that love and kindness are conditional. I can only imagine the horror of being outed at 13 from my records being released. As I said, my parents are accepting. Many queer children are not so lucky. As it stands, the release of all records would strip an already vulnerable group of kids of a safe place to learn and explore themselves and break vital trust between schools, parents, and students. So I implore you, reconsider the release of all records, especially those pertaining to counseling, in order to protect our queer students. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Anna White, and she'll be coming on over Zoom. Anna, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can you speak a little louder? You were a little low in the room.
Is that better? Sorry.
I think that's a little better. I'm going to start your 2-minute timer now.
Good evening. My name is Anna White, and I'm currently the bookkeeper and principal secretary at Taylor Middle School. I'm joining tonight on behalf of fellow Schedule B clerical staff. This school year, there was an increase in pay to a small section of that staff to bring pay up to $15 an hour. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how that was calculated, but there's been a seemingly disconnect between the pay increase of certain staff and others. So for clerks in APS, the average pay increase was about 25%, whereas for principal secretaries and bookkeepers, it was as low as 7%, but an average of 13%. And we have exhausted all measures of trying to reach out to human resources, payroll, as well as the union to try to get some answers as to how we move forward. And so our last straw tonight was to come here and hopefully gain some recognition so that we can get these issues addressed early in the school year so that we can lead the school year and support our principals in a way that is best suited for the students. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Christine Mintz. And she'll be coming in over Zoom. Christine, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can
Okay,
everyone hear me?
We can. You have 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you so much, sir. Hi, my name is Christine Mintz. I work for the Health Equity Council in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm a physician by training, and I do outreach about substance abuse education. The reason I'm here today is to discuss the, at least the version I saw, the handbook had omissions to every reference regarding opioid. And I would just question why. Also, opioids are going to exist on APS campuses, whether we like it or not. And so I would just like to also reemphasize the fact that we need to have prevention practices in place. So we're not asking for anyone to, to do discussions on fentanyl, et cetera, but we would like to have the ability to discuss this issue. And by removing all mentions in the handbook, we are worried that it will harm the ability for APS staff to provide Narcan if needed, if and when it's needed in the case of an emergency. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. And our last speaker will be in person, Mr. Antonio Baca. Mr. Baca, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Antonio Baca. This is the first time I'm speaking in front of you as a community member. Soy Burqueño. I graduated from Manzano in 2004 and UNM in 2008. I graduated the year after my friend JJ graduated from Manzano, and 6 years later, JJ was dead. He OD'd from heroin, and there was nobody there to give the life-saving medication called Narcan, which is a very easy medication to administer. He was an amazing musician and friend. Since JJ's death, opioid overdoses in Albuquerque have continued to increase every year. The risks faced by students in our schools are higher than they've ever been. 39% of overdoses come from fentanyl, 26% come from prescriptions, and 25% from heroin. Fentanyl wasn't even a part of my vocabulary when JJ died. Yet in spite of this, I noticed that on the agenda today are drastic changes to policy JL1 on student drug and alcohol use. The changes being proposed remove all language referring to opioid use prevention and opioid overdose prevention. So I have some questions. First, why are you removing the only language in APS policy about overdose prevention? The language about offering interventions was even suggested to be removed, leaving only disciplinary measures to be in the policy. But I'm glad to see that you've now decided to keep that language in about prevention or about interventions. Number two, according to the APS website, a board policy is defined as, quote, a formal statement of principles established by the Board of Education to provide guidance to the administration regarding the operation of or instruction in the school district. So what does this say about the principles of APS? In a state with one of the highest overdose rates in the country, I think it makes sense to continue to have a policy that says, no, we will not allow for another child to lose their life to an opioid overdose when there is a very effective overdose reversal medication that can be administered easily and effectively. So I'm urging the board to reconsider these changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baca. Board Member Jackson, School Board and Superintendent Elder, that is the end of public forum.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Before we end public forum, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here tonight. It's been a while since we've had this kind of a response, and I really appreciate everybody taking time out of their evening, with their families and such to be here. And again, just another congratulations to our student as well. So thank you very much. We're going to continue with our agenda. So that's typically the process. We listen and then we go ahead and carry on with our agenda, but I just wanted to let you know that. So our next item is the superintendent's report, and Superintendent Elder, you have the floor.
President Montoya Cordova, board members, community members, and staff. Tonight, you will hear a conversation with some of our APS summer interns, along with Wonder Kid there, I believe. So that's good. You will discuss the graduation ceremony schedule and receive an update on the process of engaging a strategic planning consulting firm. And you'll also be asked to consider the approval of governance training and support from the Council of Great City Schools. However, even though it is summer, there are still a lot of things happening around the district. On July 9th and 10th, more than 150 APS educators, administrators, district personnel, and community partners gathered at the Bonifacio Professional Development Center for the Vibrant Schools Conference, dedicated to the three vital energies that define vibrant schools: enlivened minds, emboldened voices, and playful learning. Coordinated by Curriculum and Instruction in partnership with multiple APS departments, the conference did not follow a traditional conference format. It was designed to be equal parts collaboration, inspiration, and action. The conference sought to improve outcomes for students, teachers, and communities by providing a place where educators could come together, learn from one another, and create plans to increase authentic engagement, apply equity-centered practices, and attend to the emotional well-being of all stakeholders. Over the course of the 2 days, there were 69 in-person and virtual breakout sessions. They were offering a variety of topics, such as creating safer spaces for youth, celebrating culture with bilingual literature, using podcasts and stop motion videos as new tools for assessment, and growing the future with outdoor education. The final afternoon was devoted to an unconference format, which created space for educators to have open discussions while engaging in action planning. Students were also highlighted at the conference with the Cibola Color Guard presenting the colors, the Volcano Vista High School senior Marisol Herrera singing the national anthem. The La Cueva Concert Choir joyfully welcomed participants with a beautiful performance on day 2. Attendees also reported feeling well cared for with coffee, baked goods, and lunch donated by local businesses such as Wex, Dion's, Jersey Mike's, Michael Thomas Coffee Roasters, Rude Boy Cookies, and Great Harvest Bread Company. The generous contributions of our business community helped to create an atmosphere of gratitude and celebration that resonated with all educators in attendance. Every element of the conference was intentionally crafted to honor the hard work and experience of APS educators and create a space that would spark meaningful changes through relationship building and conversation. And an exit survey indicated that 97% of participants felt that was accomplished. Post-event feedback overflowed with calls for the work to continue with ongoing study groups and professional learning, as well as to expand future Vibrant Schools conferences to include APS administrators, departments, and teams from every school. And participants ended the conference by sharing action steps they would take to foster more enlivened minds, more emboldened voices, and more playful learning in their classrooms across APS. The Albuquerque Public Schools, like many of its counterparts, is grappling with a significant drop in student enrollment. As you know, our APS communications team of 3 turned to contracted freelancers to boost positive coverage, increase the district's social media presence, and promote the district. Last week, they presented their insights and experiences during the Council of the Great City Schools 21st Annual Public Relations Executive Meeting. The presentation before 90 communications executives representing the largest school districts in America focused on the value and reach that freelancers bring to a small communications team. Those attending the conference were provided full access to APS freelance contracts, job descriptions, assignment worksheets, analytics, and more. So anyone wishing to implement freelancers in their district would have everything they need. During the presentation titled Launching a Student Recruitment and Retention Campaign, the group learned that in 1 year, in collaboration with the freelancers, APS significantly grew its social media audience. From October 2021 to date, Facebook and Instagram posts have reached 241,606 people, an average of 3,503 daily. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter have yielded 42,000 sessions on the aps.edu website, with an average of 4.08 pages viewed per session. The 65 videos produced in the same time frame have been viewed more than 38,000 times. The influence of social media and video in school marketing was also discussed. It is widely believed that a strong social media and video strategy is a cornerstone of successful social marketing today. It's also worth noting that our parents and students are digital natives, and this is their preferred mode of communication. I'm grateful for the work of our small but mighty communications team and their willingness to share what they have learned with other districts. And finally, it's almost time for kids and staff to come back to school. Teachers and staff at all 29 extended calendar schools will be back in the classrooms on July 28th, and students follow on Thursday, August 4th. Teachers and staff from traditional calendar schools will be back on Wednesday, August 3rd, and the students follow on Wednesday, August 10th. I really love this time of year. The energy and excitement in the year in the air is palpable, and I hope you will reach out to all your schools and help welcome them back. And this concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Superintendent. So our next items, we're going to move on is, I should put on my glasses so I could see it. Oh, look, there it is. All right, so our next one is a conversation with Albuquerque Public Schools interns from the summer internship program. This is a discussion, and Dr. Gabriela Duran Blakey, Chief Operations Officer, she has the floor and she's going to introduce this topic.
Good evening. Sorry, my computer was being slow. Good evening, Board President Montoya Cordova, members of the board. This evening, we have with you some great interns, and I'd like to also thank Ms. Yeager, who is with you, who has been instrumental in this project this year as well. Bernalillo County has continued the summer internship program for youth, and we are excited to participate again this year. This paid internship is designed to provide real-world experiences that develop the application of academic, technical, and employability skills in a work setting. These youth have worked in the board office and in operations, including fleet, food services, and materials management. And I have to say, they've had some great mentors in the district, including several that are here this evening. Brenda Yeager, Opal Martinez, Kristen Kenneth, Mary Grace Madrid, and Sandy Kemp. And tonight we have several of our interns here to talk about their experiences this summer and what they've learned working in APS. And so interns that are here, if you're able to turn on your camera, we would love for you to do so. And I believe that Joshua Gutierrez is in person in the audience as well. And so we'll start with Josh. And the first question that we'd like to hear from each of you is to tell us about, just introduce yourself and tell us what department you worked in and what you did as part of your responsibilities. So we will start with Joshua.
My name is Joshua Gutierrez. I'm in the APS fleet maintenance position. And a little bit of what we've done this summer is, or the people, my other coworker that's working with me is run parts for the mechanics that work on the cars for the APS schools, as well as inventory the parts room and sort parts and stuff like that too.
Great, thank you. Anthony, how about you? Can you introduce yourself and tell us about what you've been doing this summer?
Yeah, my name is Anthony. I've been working in the Board of Education Services office, and there I've had a pretty wide range of responsibilities. Ms. Yeager was my supervisor, and her goal was for us to have a real world job experience. So we've done research, but we've also done filing. So there's all kinds of a very broad range of things we've done in our internship.
Great, thank you, Anthony. Marlena Martinez.
Hello, I'm Marlena Martinez. I also worked with Anthony at the board services department. And like he said, we did have a wide range of responsibilities, and we did a lot of different things, and we learned so much there, from doing like more basic things like filing to getting to do research for them. And I really enjoyed this opportunity.
Thank you. Logan.
Hello, my name is Logan Clark, and I help out at the at APS Food and Nutrition Services. And I help out with delivering food to schools, community centers, and parks.
Thank you, Logan. Adriana.
My name is Adriana Johnson, and I work at Materials Management Warehouse. Filing, verifying products, taking inventory, But the main thing that I've done so far is data entry for contracts that are for products in the warehouse.
Great, thank you. And I think we have one more on Neha. Carolina, are you on? We'll see if they're able to connect. There she is. Go ahead.
My name is Neha Joshi and I work at APS. Oh, okay. Hi. I'm Neha Joshi and I work at APS Fleet Maintenance. And basically what we do is we've been doing inventory and basically just like learning about how an automotive shop works.
Great, thank you, Neha. And anybody else there? I think that's everyone. So the next question we'd like to ask, and any of you can answer this, is what did you see or learn in APS this summer that you didn't know even existed before when you were a student?
I can go first.
You're on the spot because you're right there in front of them. You have to answer.
I didn't even know there was like a fleet part to it. I thought you guys just sent them to like AutoZone, like all the cars and stuff. And I didn't know there was that much to it. Especially the parts room right now. It's the guy that was working there before. He had it kind of in a disaster, so we're kind of organizing it. So learned a lot on how different people function too, and how organization is important to APS and the people that work for them.
Thank you. Anybody else? How about Anthony?
As a student, I was aware that there was a Board of Education that would set the policy for the district. But what I didn't know was that there was a whole board services office that puts in a ton of hard work behind the scenes. They keep records and are at every board meeting. So I didn't even know that existed before this internship. So I'm glad I've had this opportunity.
Great, and we'll do one more. How about Logan?
I think it's cool to see how the meals are put together for schools in person, and they have it really streamlined and efficient now, and it's pretty impressive.
Great, thank you, Logan. The next question we want to ask a couple of you is, what did you learn this summer that you think will help you in future jobs that you have? Marlena, let's start with you. What do you think you've learned that can help you in a future job?
I think I've learned a lot that would help me, mostly working in an office setting and just learning how to do that and how to adapt to all the changes that happen and learning things really quickly and just everything that goes along with it. I think it gave me a lot of experience for future jobs that I might have.
Great, thank you. Neha, what about you? What have you learned this summer that you think will help in a future job?
I would say that just kind of like organization skills would be like a thing that I learned that I would take to my a next job environment.
Great, thank you. The next question we want to ask a couple of you is, what is the most exciting thing that you saw or that you got to do this summer during your internship? So something that you felt was really exciting that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do this summer if you weren't in this internship. Adriana, what do you think?
I would say just seeing the process and seeing how everything works, and just how things flow together with the warehouse, because I had never, this is my job, so it was just really cool to see kind of a workplace setting and process happen in front of me.
Thank you. It's yeah, the warehouse is pretty gigantic. And so when people see it, they're a little overwhelmed in everything that Krista and Mary Grace are doing over there. Joshua, what about you? what's something exciting that you got to see or got to do during your internship this summer that you wouldn't have done if you weren't in this job?
I think the most exciting thing is being able to learn, because a lot of the mechanics are helpful with questions that you ask about cars. So not only is it a learning experience, but it's also a fun job to have. So it really doesn't feel like work when you show up.
Good, good. The last question that we want to ask you is, what would you tell your friends or other students about what you saw behind the scenes in APS that surprised you? A lot of you worked in areas of APS that you hadn't seen before, like the board office or auto or food services, the warehouse. What is something that you would tell your friends that you saw behind the scenes, kind of from what you're used to and seeing in a classroom, that surprised you? Logan, what did you see that surprised you?
Well, having trouble answering this one.
Well, you were talking about like food, delivering the food and everything. Did you know that that was something that existed from APS, or were you surprised to see how big that food facility is?
Yeah, especially their freezers. They have this. It's like half the building. It's just cold.
Did you get to wear the big outfit to go inside of it, or did you handle it on your own?
You can go inside without a jacket, but they also supply jackets for people who are working in there for a couple hours.
And days like today probably feels good to go into the freezer for a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks, Logan. Marlena, what about you? What did you see behind the scenes that surprised you?
Really everything about it. I had no idea it existed before. And I think what I would take away most or be able to share with my friends and other peers is that we can have a lot more involvement and input with what goes on for our education. Because I had no idea how to give a public forum, or give comments to the board members, really how I could have input on stuff that's happening with stuff like the student handbook. And I think that's what I would share with my friends, or anything, that we could have a lot more involvement with our education.
Great, that's great. How about Anthony?
I agree with pretty much everything Marlena just said. We had discussed this beforehand, so I agree that first of all, I was surprised that the board services office existed in the first place, because that was something I didn't even know. But also the fact that we can have an input, a big input or a big say in our education, was something I really wasn't aware of. So I would share that with my friends.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. And as we said, they had great mentors along the way. And, a lot of us over the summer don't get to experience, being around the students. And so it's been great from the operations side to be able to have students and show off their work, kind of what Joshua was talking about too. It's been great for Fleet to be able to, brag about a lot of good work that's happening that a lot of people don't see. And so to be able to share it with students and have the students be a part of that over the summer, a lot of people think we just closed down because school's closed. So being able to have students has been really great. And speaking of the board, we do have 7 board members that I'm sure have great questions for all of you. So that was just kind of a little opening. But we'll turn it over to you, President Montoya Cordova, and the board. If you have any questions for our interns who are here this evening, and we also have their mentors on this meeting as well, if you have any questions for any of them.
Thank you. Thank you, students, too, for sharing your experiences. I'm just going to say really quickly, you're one of about 2,000 plus students statewide that got to participate in this program, because I know that there was funding that was made available through the public ed department. And it was a partnership between the Workforce Solutions Department and Public Ed to facilitate the summer youth work-based learning program. And the intention was that you would have an opportunity to see kind of an experience in an industry or a career pathway, something that would be focused that way. So congratulations on being one of those 2,000 plus students statewide. There's a whole group of you all over the place, and I'm excited I feel very honored, and I just have a lot of pride in knowing that APS was part of that group and that part of that community that made that available for our students. So congratulations on finishing that. And I'll just open it up. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they want to make? Go ahead.
I'd like to prompt both Marlena and Anthony to talk about the research project, even if briefly. I was just wowed.
Yeah, there was a research project that Dr. Christy Albright had brought to my attention and Marlena's attention in the board services office. And we decided to research different ways of funding school districts across the country. I researched a resource-based funding for school districts that are in states like Idaho and Alabama. And it's different, it's based on resources, hence the name. And it's a lot different than what we have here in New Mexico, which is student population based.
That's impressive.
Marlena, do you want to add your aspect?
Sure. The part I researched about education funding is hybrid funding, which is sort of a mix between what we have in New Mexico and what other states have with their resources funding. So basically, every state that has hybrid funding does it differently, and they all choose how they do their own. But usually they use student population, and they give a certain amount of funding for that, and then they also get extra funding for school districts that have less opportunities, and they've had less funding in the past, and they don't have the same resources as other school districts. So hybrid funding mostly works to give every school district an equal opportunity and equal resources for education.
Pretty impressed. I mean, I was, yeah.
Board members, have we done that research? Any other questions, Board Member Peterson? You look like you had a question.
Well, I was going to say you probably know more about funding formulas than probably 90% of our entire state community, and probably more than at least a quarter of the legislators themselves. So well done. I'm curious if any of you see more of a vision of what you want, of where you're headed after school. Did this project, did this internship spark some ideas of how you see your future and what you want to work towards?
I can start real quick just to say that I would like to be an engineer in the future. That's what I'm going to go to college for in a couple weeks. But this was a really good experience for me because I've worked at different places. I've worked in a grocery store before this, and I know that working in an office setting is a lot better for me. So I know that it cemented my feelings in that way.
Anyone? Well, we truly appreciate the work that you've done, and I really hope that we can grow the program in the future. So thank you all.
Any other comments or questions?
To jump off of kind of what Anthony said, I want to do industrial engineering. So from a mechanical engineering type of aspect, it shows me like what mechanical engineering is. And seeing that also like confirms what I want to do, because I want to do mechanical engineering, and I was kind of iffy about it, but now it confirms that like I wanna stick to industrial engineering, and maybe in the future can develop a new passion of maybe even working on cars, because I've always been interested in that too. So not only career wise, but I feel like this internship can create new hobbies and passions.
Thank you.
I'm really happy to hear you say that, Joshua, because I know from just having attended like the STEM conference or the STEM where they have a big competition. But one of the things that I remember hearing from a professor with students that are planning to go into like engineering or planning to go into the STEM fields, that they've never even had an opportunity to like put their hands on something that's mechanical. So, the chance that, the opportunity that you got to see something and see kind of how it works, know that the parts and how they fit together is really helpful. And I will just say for all of you is the skills, there's a big word that's used often out there and they call it soft skills. Yeah, big word. But employers are looking for, that really important soft skills around things like teamwork, being able to problem solve, independence, the ability to work without constantly being told what to do, but taking that interest in what you're doing and how you're doing it. I think these jobs gave you an opportunity to see yourself in that way, that you've got to be independent, got to do some problem solving on your own. And so, Dr. Blakey, I just want to say thank you to the team, because I know part of the whole effort with this, and just for the board members to know this, behind this is that the mentors that were part of this also had to take on a task, and they had to be ready for this, and they had to be really specific about what they were going to do for their unit, or how they were going to actually manage an intern. So it wasn't just like throw an intern into the workplace and, kind of put them in a dark little corner, but it had to be very deliberate too, in terms of project-based and some of the work learning pieces. And I can hear that just from the conversations that you all shared tonight. So it's really awesome. So thank you. This is great. It's wonderful to see our students. I hope we did prepare you in some way. And tell all your friends about this so that next year they could be one of the 2,000 plus. We hope that the program will grow statewide, but this is the second year that they've had it. And so it's great to see that APS was part of the project this year. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And next week, we're going to be taking the team on a little bit of a field trip. And I think Ms. Yeager has some details if anybody would like to join us, but we're going to go check out KNME and KANW and go see how the radio station and television stations work. So I know she has details on that if anybody wants to join us on our adventure. So that will be our field trip for the year. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys. If not tomorrow, we'll see you at the radio station. So thank you guys for joining us tonight and chatting with us.
Thank you, students. All right. Well, I think we'll move on to our next item. And so our next item is a review of the 2023 graduation ceremony schedule. It's hard to believe. We just finished graduation, but we're going to start. Hi, Josh. We're going to start with that. And Dr. Blakey, you have the floor again.
So good evening again, President Montoya Cordova, members of the board. This evening, we just wanted to review with you the graduation schedule for next year. And I know it seems like it's a long way away, but my entering senior niece who is graduating this year is very antsy to find out when her graduation date is. So I know those seniors are really excited about graduation, and soon we'll be enjoying their, they usually do the sunrise with all the seniors soon, and then they'll do their sunset their last day. So I know they're really excited about it. So this is our graduation schedule for next year. And there's a few changes for next year that I just wanted to make you aware of. We are having 3 graduations a day. This year we had one day that had three, and the others had 2. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is just efficiency in the use of the facility. And another one is because the UNM's graduation is on Saturday, May 20th. And just to try to help partner with families that have graduations from UNM, CNM, high schools, it's a busy week. And so the less conflicts we can help with, the better. We've also changed a few of the times, and that's just in a request from Tingley Coliseum staff with parking, primarily with the people coming in and people leaving, and it caused some parking concerns or traffic concerns for the staff at Tingley. So what they've asked is that we pair small schools with large schools, and not necessarily the graduating size of the school. It's actually looking at the number of people that come to the graduation. So Ms. Tracy Seckler, who is our coordinator for graduation, had looked at all of the numbers of the participants that we had and the spectators that we had to try to adjust for some of the traffic concerns. So with that, we just wanted to bring this forward for your review, just so that you have it and we can send it out to the schools. Graduation will begin the week of May 15th, other than college and career high school, which will be our first graduation. They coincide with CNM's graduation and their schedule. So they would be April 28th, and then the rest of the schools will follow that week of the 15th. And with that, I stand for any questions.
So I'll just open it up. Are there any questions?
I just have a quick one. When, Dr. Blakey, when is UNM graduation again?
UNM's graduation is May 20th.
Okay, so we're still going to have a conflict with one of the schools, because almost always, I mean, I just know because my daughter just graduated and it's in the morning at the same time as Sandia's. And so I know that makes it difficult for parents. They have to choose between going to their high school graduation, child's high school graduation, or their child's graduation from the university.
Yes, and in Board Member Mueller-Aragon, in the case of Sandia High School, and Mr. Elder can speak more to what happens with Sandia because he's familiar with it. Because of their IB program, they have to graduate on Saturday. And so that's why they're still on Saturday. Otherwise, we could have moved them to that Friday slot or the Monday slot. But because of their program with IB, they have to graduate on a Saturday.
Is there any way they can do it a little bit like later? Because I've never seen that UNM's graduation is ever in the afternoon, that it's always at 9, I think at 9 in the morning or something.
I'm not, Mr. Elder, do you know why, could you speak to why Sandia has the Saturday? Is there a certain time that they need to graduate?
Board members know there's no reason that Sandia couldn't graduate at a specific time. It's something we'd have to work out with their staff. There is issues of having staff on a Saturday every year, and they're certainly aware of it. The reason Sandia graduates only on Saturday is the International Baccalaureate does not allow rescheduling of their exams for any reason. And I mean any reason. And their rationale is it's a global exam given basically at the same time across the world. And if someone were to not take it, they could technically have access to the questions when they took it. They guard that very, very carefully. And I've never, AP works with us, other groups work with us, but IB is just, nope, that's it. So that's why they're on Saturday.
I just know how heartbreaking that is for parents that have to choose between one or the other. So if there's any way that we can find out the exact time that UNM graduates, and I know it may not affect that many people, but the ones it affects, it matters to them. If we could, I would just appreciate it.
Sure, we can look into it and see if perhaps we can, I can check with UNM and see what theirs is usually in the morning, but we could perhaps change it to the 2 o'clock time on Saturday, but we can look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
My only question is, do we know yet what the playoff schedule will be is that totally up in the air? That's the only other thing that's ever come up that I'm aware of that's a conflict.
Board member appears you couldn't possibly know that because we don't know who would qualify.
Right. All we know is that
Tell you time.
finals will be on this
We have
day.
no idea who will be there. We don't know who, what day they'll play. I mean, we know roughly, but we have no clue which schools would be involved.
I thought not.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to our next item, which is an update on the progress of engaging a strategic planning consulting firm in the continuation of the strategic plan development. And Board Member Gonzalez has the floor.
Great, thank you. So just wanted to provide an update to the public and to the members of the board and APS community on where we stand with the strategic planning process. So you heard, I think back in June, an update on the fundraising, which continues underway, but we've raised about $230,000 to support the effort. And we also, as you know, had several proposals come in that were reviewed and scored by a committee that included members of the APS district staff, the board, and the APS Education Foundation, and then had interviews for the finalists. So selected 3 firms as finalists that were interviewed by this committee last week, and again, scored against a rubric, and are excited to announce that the committee selected a final firm, and the APS Education Foundation is in the process of entering into a contract with that firm. And so the name of the firm is called Attuned Education Partners. I'm really excited. I think we're all really excited about the experience that they as an organization, but also individual members of the firm bring to the process, and the just expertise and experience that they have, having worked not just as practitioners and district staff themselves, but having a pretty robust portfolio of doing similar projects in other districts. We asked specifically about many of the components that we're interested in, which includes, I think, as you know, robust stakeholder engagement that is authentic and two-way and inclusive, about, again, a really robust instructional quality review process where they will be getting into several schools, so 2 per band per zone, and looking at artifacts related to instruction, and having all of that process feed up to a process where we're also looking at our data in terms of student outcomes and more to help the district identify some goals and metrics. And something I'm really excited about as well is the data dashboard. How do we track these goals? And how do we use that as a foundation for the work that we do as the board, just to monitor, to improve transparency, but also to hold the district accountable for those changes. So really excited about the process and the quality of the applicants that we had. It was a tough call, a close conversation. There were really high quality applicants. I think at the end, most members of the review committee were confident that any of the firms could have done a great job with the process. And so really just came down to some minor differences in how they were scored. And so, as I said, the APS Education Foundation is working now to enter into the agreement with Attuned. They have, however, set up a sort of preliminary kickoff meeting, which is really just focused on getting the project plan in place and identifying roles and responsibilities. And they will play a critical role in making sure that that project plan is fully implemented. And we will obviously play a role in that as well in terms of tracking it. So I'm really excited about the progress that we've made, and more importantly, how it's going to support all of our work going forward.
Agree. So yeah, it was excellent. Had a chance to also be part of the process, and I agree with everything Board Member Gonzalez is like, the quality and just the caliber of the folks that came to the table to support us were pretty impressive. I was really impressed with the process itself and the conversation about what it includes. And I can see how, I think, being engaged and reading the proposals and being part of the interview sort of really helped me also frame how this is going to work and why school districts do it. And I think it's going to be a really it's going to be a game changer, I think, for us in terms of a district, in terms of being able to really fully describe how that work comes together. But just having those coaches and those individuals to sort of guide us through that process, I think is going to be excellent. So I believe we stand for some questions if board members have questions or comments.
Tell me, you may have just said it and I missed it, but what is the timeline of when the work actually begins?
As soon as they can get them under contract. So ideally, the beginning of August, we're looking to have the kickoff meeting, I think August 2nd, that first week.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
And how long will the process take?
That's a good question. I think in its entirety, it ends up taking a year, which is what we want it to be in order to have all of the components in place, the stakeholder engagement, the instructional quality review, in which case you actually have to be in classrooms seeing instruction, the development of goals, the development of the dashboard for tracking. But one of the things that I think really set Attuned apart is that part of their offerings is essentially an implementation plan for the first 18 months, where they take the goals and break that into a scope and sequence of how that would be broken out over 5 years. And what needs to happen in terms of milestones within those first 18 months. So they really do a lot to Chair Montoya Cordova's framing a lot of support for us. And so in its entirety, it's about a year, but it's definitely front loaded.
Yeah, I believe what will come out of this is, like, I agree, is like that front loading side and the front end to help coach up the staff, but then being left with the really good plan that gives us the benchmarks and the ways that we can continue to do it. So there's going to be a lot of capacity, I think, for people to learn how to use a strategic framework, how to use it as a way to make decisions and to move forward, and to also monitor progress as we're going along. That's what I was most impressed with, is that it's sort of, they're going to lay out a structure for us. So we're going to have something that's tangible that we can actually see and understand about the district and where we want to go. So I think it's going to be really helpful.
So when you say staff, does that include teachers, a teacher input element?
There's going to be a big front end piece on that, because the engagement is going to include us as a board. They'll be engaging us separately so that we're also having a chance to be part of that conversation, in terms of where we are. And it's going to segue into the next thing that I want to talk about too, but there's that work, but then there's that real intentional work with the staff themselves. The teachers get to be engaged, parents and students. So there's a way to also capture all of that and really encapsulate what that all means and how we want to drive our plan forward. So I just like their process. I mean, I think I learned so much just from reading the RFP and listening to them. I could see how it could be really helpful. And what's really impressive too is the folks that are doing it. It's like people who are educators too. They've been in the classroom. So they also come from that perspective of either being a leader in a school, but also being in the classroom. So I really felt like we were working with people who understood that struggle of just the day-to-day operation of being a teacher too, which was really important. And they talked about that a lot, talked about that need to support our teachers and to really listen to the teachers and understand how we're framing curriculum and instruction for them so that they can be really successful. So it's pretty dynamic, and I think they're going to be great.
Great.
I have a quick one. So the strategic framework and plan then will be fully implemented by the school year 23-24, or will pieces happen before that?
I guess it depends on your definition of fully implemented. So I think things will definitely happen before that, because once they do the instructional quality review, the data gathering, all of the intel gathering and the stakeholder engagement, they will work with us to set the goals. So those goals will be set and provide the framework for our governance in this school year. But some of the additional stuff in terms of implementing programs, strategies, priorities, that obviously would go into the next school year and beyond.
I also walked away, here's how I walk away with it, is I think there is already stuff that is being implemented in the district. And they're going to help us to frame how to really monitor that and to really know, is it strategic, one, and, is it getting us to where we need to go? So I don't believe it's like they're going to come in and we're like a tabula rasa and it's like nothing's happening, but it's looking at what we do have, looking at our strengths and looking at the way that we're taking the strategic framework that we currently have, and then just really just sort of stacking it a little bit more, really putting some more meat to it. Like we've always talked about, we wanted to have things, metrics and things in ways that we could communicate out to the public about what that means. We've got a good strategic framework. We know we do, but we just need to know how to be better at executing it, implementing it, making sure that we're supporting it by whatever instruction, curriculum, or things that we're putting on there to actually move it forward. And then also making sure that we're really good as a board to be able to communicate it out to the community that it is making a difference. So it's really supportive for the staff. And I believe really supportive for the direction of where we want to go and how it's actually being set up right now. So it's just kind of like extra consultation on this side to sort of take what we have and let's say, help us to see, are these pieces worth moving forward? What, if we're going to move them forward, do we have the right stuff to do it with?
And then the last question that I would ask is, I know that you said that most of the personnel that are participating and helping us are from education. Are there people that are from the outside that are not ingrained in education? Because I always think it's important, you can look from the inside out, but you also need to have people that are out there. They're the ones that are going to employ our children, et cetera.
Yeah, that I don't know, but I do think where that outside perspective comes in all of the work that they've done with other districts. And so, I mean, thinking even about some of the Council of Great City Schools districts, I see Board Member Peterson has the page up, but I think it's like Cleveland, Atlanta, Denver, comparable districts. And so I think they can bring some of that outside perspective, because I do agree that's really important.
Yeah, there's large districts they've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an impressive list.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what they're gonna just really help with,
Oh, sorry.
I think what they're really gonna help with is the governance aspect of what our role is, right? Just to kind of tail on what President Montoya Cordova and Board Member Gonzalez said, is we have the framework, right? Now we just need the metrics and the rigor and the ability to kind of sift through the fog that sometimes it's hard for us to, we're so close to what happens every day, that it's nice to have somebody else kind of come in, help us sift through and attach metrics. I mean, it's so important for us to have metrics so that we can better govern. We have a dashboard, we have something that we can say, we're not performing here, why, we're doing well here, why. So we have that ability with, I think the base is there within APS, we just need that. This is fantastic to have this group come in and provide their expertise. It's really exciting, really exciting.
So
go ahead.
No matter what, it's going to be an interesting process. And, one of the things, and I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of the Instruction and Accountability Committee, and I'm hoping that they can really help us grapple with how do we measure progress. We keep looking at sort of the big summative, how did they do on whatever state standard space test there is, or what's the graduation rate? And what we end up doing is holding sort of the people who are in the middle of the work, but with in a way, the least amount of power, the most accountable. And we haven't ever really figured out, how do we hold us at the district level accountable with measurable goals? and with the implementation. And so I'm hoping that they can really help us figure out how to see progress and measure when it's not happening. And I'll throw out just a couple of examples. Like we had launched a real effort to pull together ethnic studies and to really think about what's working. There's incredible expertise in this city between the practitioners in the classroom, people at UNM, a real effort, and it just didn't get over that hump of real implementation and seeing what does that mean at a system level. And I'm hoping that through this process, we can figure out at the governance level, how do we really keep track of that? We're lucky that in this district, we have a teachers union that is very much committed to professional practice development, really committed to developing the workforce, really committed to reaching out and having the partnerships that can really elevate the practice of teaching. And I think we have a lot of strengths. We need to figure out how to really pull that together so that it's meaningful. So hopefully this process will help us do that.
It will, and I do think there's lots of artifacts, examples of what we could look at from the other districts that they've worked with, both in terms of concrete measurable goals, but also annual reporting and tracking. So that's definitely stuff that we can request too.
Okay, good news.
I know. So we're on track and good work on that, because I think that was the timeline that we gave ourselves for that. So it's nice as a board to be meeting some of our own goals that we set for ourselves and a timeline. So the next item that for our consideration, but we do have an action on this one, and I'm going to I'll discuss this one, Ms. Yeager and I's consideration for approval of requesting governance training and support from the Council of Great City Schools and commitment from the Board of Education to undergo the process. And so I want to talk a little bit about what this is. So as we're doing this work with Attune on the strategic framework, we have to remember that a lot of the work that they're going to be doing is really going to be focused with the school staff itself, with the district staff and the work that they're doing. We have work that we need to do too as a governance team to get kind of our stuff together on this. And the Council of Great City Schools offers this, it's called Effective Governance, and it's training for large school districts like ourselves and helping us to do also some things that we need to do. And there's basically 4 areas that they work on. One is clarifying our priorities. 2 is monitoring progress. 3 is aligning resources, and 4 is communicating our results. And so they would be coaching through those 4 activities. And it's through that we would also be able to take things up like priority setting. And, you know, one of the things that we often have talked about, I know Board Member Gonzalez has brought this up a lot, is what are our guardrails when we're talking about budget and finance? Like, what is it that what is our priorities for that? And how do we want to set those? And we have to be very intentional as a team around that. And so with this particular governance training, there is a cost to this. And so one of the things that we've looked at, and Ms. Yeager and I had this conversation, is like, we do have a budget ourselves that supports us as board members and the things that we do with the board staff. So there is professional development money that we have there. And Ms. Yeager is going to give us and give you guys an overview of how we looked at this and what the budget would entail and what we would be giving up, but what we wouldn't be giving up as well too. So one of the things that I also want to point out to you for this is that over the weekend, during the NMSBA, I had a conversation with Mr. Guillen with the New Mexico School Board Association, and he's agreed that if we do participate in this as well, that he's going to give us up to 5 credits. So we would get our 5 hours of professional development per member too. So in addition to some of the things that we would attend for the NMSBA. I explained the process to him and, you know, what it would mean for us. We will get one-on-one coaching. So the first piece would be the Council of Great City Schools would actually interview each of the board members individually, just to kind of get a picture of where everyone is. And then we would have to have a retreat. It would be a 2-day retreat initially to kick this off. And they would come in and help us with this initial conversation on talking on those 4 priority areas that we're talking about. And then we'd get coaching about once a month. And so that coaching could look very different. It could look really interesting. Some of the coaching could be with Superintendent Elder and I together with a coach, and they're going to actually look at our agenda setting processes. They're going to look at our agendas and actually review our meetings, so that could also understand how effective we are. Are we taking up things that we really don't need to be taking up? How can we also make ourselves really effective in that governance and the way that we're also running our meetings? There would be a priority setting work session that we would have to have as part of that as well, so that we could determine, and generally a board of our size usually has like no more than 5 priorities. It's like 3 to 4 at the most, but 3 to 4 key priority areas that we see and we can communicate to the public, but also for ourselves. And whenever we're monitoring the work that's being presented to us, or we're managing policy, finances, the work of the district, we would do it against those priorities. We'd also be able to communicate with each of the departments. These are our priorities. These are the things that we're interested in terms of how we want to move the district forward. Attuned is not going to set that for us. That's not one of the things that they'll be able to do. Attuned is going to want to know what our priorities are, so that they can also move forward. I think we're going to learn some things because we're going to be kind of in this parallel track together, but we have to do this work too. This is us rolling up our sleeves and being very clear about the direction we want to take the district, or how we want to govern ourselves around the things that we communicate to the public and also for the district. So the cost of this is $20,000. And we have to make a commitment to it. The Council of Great City Schools is pretty interesting. If we fail in our commitment in any way, we're going to owe them more money, but I think we're going to be okay. So I got that impression that we would be okay. I know we do have a person, Brenda, we do have a person from the Council of Great City Schools here as well, who's present with us. Cindy, are you there? Yes. I hope I justice to what I described it fairly well, but Cindy and I had a really good conversation, and I don't know if you'd like to add a little bit more in terms of the description for the board members.
Yeah, and I think you described it pretty well. Some of the priorities that you'll be setting may overlap some with the goals that your strategic planning firm is setting, but I think, like you said, we'll be running parallel, and we'll be able to connect with each other so that we ensure that we're all on the same page as far as that goes. And because some of what we do talk about a lot, because we want the student outcomes focus, is monitoring progress toward accomplishment of student outcome goals. So that what I heard that you're all embarking on sounds very familiar and very exciting. So, and we would be supporting you all as a team, as individuals, and also superintendent and key staff as needed as well. And ours too would be a long-term process over the course of anywhere from 12 to, we would map out also what that timeline of activities and such would be over at least 12 months.
And I do want to add that on that initial kickoff on the 2-day retreat, it wouldn't be just for us. We would also include key cabinet members. We'd want to have them in the room with us so that we could also see ourselves as the leadership team basically for that in the conversation for that. So with a 2-day retreat too. And when I talked to Cindy about that, I said, wow, that's a big commitment because I know this board is a really busy board too in terms of our schedules. And so we talked about strategies on that. You know, we could start on a Friday and have a Friday, Saturday event so that we would have 2 full days and none of us would have to miss like 2 full days of work. Or if, you know, because I know for myself personally, I'd have to have a Friday, Saturday. I mean, that's the only easy way for me to do it and commit to a 2-day retreat. But so Ms. Yeager, do you want to talk about the budget and some of the things that we did there?
Sure. So excluding salaries and board stipends, there is $185,000 in the Board and Government Affairs budget to run the office. So that covers things like your dues with New Mexico School Boards Association, the policy subscription that we have with them, your cell phones, copy machines, board book, which is the software that we use for your board meetings, office supplies, furniture, legislative meetings. That $185,000 has to cover all of that. So currently out of that $185,000, there's $27,000 in the training travel portion of the budget, which isn't very much because past boards have trimmed that training category. So right now that includes the funding for 1 board member and 1 staff member to go to the Council of Great City Schools annual conference and the March legislative conference, all of the New Mexico School Boards Association conferences, which is where you get the majority of your credits for the mandated training, and then a few miscellaneous things like the finance chair attending the spring budget workshop, the 2 board members attending the New Mexico Coalition of Education Leaders Conference, and then the Economic Forum meetings as well. So I went through the budget to see if I could repurpose $20,000 plus the minimal travel expenses too that the council will have. So if the board decides to enter this agreement with the Council of the Great City Schools this year. And so I zeroed out some of the categories to do this, but there is money to do that. So where I took it from, since there won't be any board member elections this year, I took out the $3,600 from that line item. I completely zeroed out the furniture line item of $3,000. At some point, we have to digitize our past board records, but we really do not have, with how hiring is going right now, we don't have the staff resources to do that this year. So I took $2,900 for the start of that project. And then staff has asked for training this year, but they really wanted de-escalation training. And so I was able to get that through one of our insurance carriers. So I can take the $4,000 that I had put into that line item for that. I've taken $3,000 out of your supply budget. So keep recycling those folders and send them back to us so we can reuse them again. That's just one of those things, but we're pretty good about trying to recycle as much as we possibly can in the supply area. And then I took out $3,400 in contract services. That's for things like the catering of your legislative meetings. We've really been able to use our culinary arts students in schools. And so there is still a cost because we do have to pay food, but it's substantially lower than if we would go to a caterer and stuff like that. So I was able to take that out. So, and then I am able to pull, like, for example, you in those categories where you don't use all of the money, like for example, this last leadership retreat of the School Board Association, 3 of you didn't attend that. So I can pull money from those kinds of things for the travel portion for the council. So there is $20,000 plus the minor travel expenses for the council commitment. If that's what you decide to do. There isn't any money for the hourly rate if the board does not follow the agreement. So
we will follow that agreement.
You will have to follow the agreement.
That's right.
I'm I guess I just want to add, and I don't know, Cindy could say this too, but we wouldn't be like the only school board that has ever done this. So, I mean, there's several school boards, and Cindy, you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have a number of school boards through the council who are engaged in various stages of this process. And so we, like I said, we keep a timeline of activities for you all, and we also help to keep you on track with that timeline as well. And that's what we work with board chairs and board leadership to do to ensure that you are organizing those activities on a monthly basis. So we will do our level best, as we have with other districts, to keep you on track, because we would like, we definitely want you to get the governance training that you need to, be the effective board that you desire to be. So,
and it's a great time for us to do it, since we've got, four new members. And I know that this has been a conversation on us on how we can be more effective with our meetings too. Because I know that Cindy said one of the goals on there too is to help boards not extend their meetings for like these long, exorbitant hours, but there is a way to do it. But I think we have to take a look at some of our agenda setting and the ways that we're, the things that we are taking up. So it's an opportunity for us to also do an audit of that and where we want to go. So with that said, any discussion?
After you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I've had the opportunity to learn from Mr. AJ Kripel in a couple of different forums, both at the Council of Great City Schools March Legislative Conference, but also last week at the School Board Partners convening, and even prior. And just want to underscore how awesome he is as a trainer, but also just as the developer of this framework, because I do think the primary focus is on student outcomes, and that has to be our entire job. And that has to be how we spend the majority of our time, if not all of our time. And so the experience that he and the team have in helping boards get rid of everything else so that we really can focus on student outcomes, I think is powerful. And I know that there are great examples in terms of how the focus on student outcomes has improved student outcomes. I didn't write them down, but he spoke specifically to increases in like reading and, literacy rates, graduation rates, all not a direct, result of just the board, but it is that focus. And so I think it is an efficient and effective use of our resources, and I would definitely support it.
Go ahead.
So when I think about the last board, we all traveled off to Boston, which was great fun, and participated in a great training at Harvard Business School. And it was enjoyable and interesting. And I don't think very much of that came back to actually impact how we functioned as a board. And so I think this is a much better approach. I'll just always push for the fact that impacting student outcomes is a pretty broad topic that includes things that aren't just necessarily straightforwardly linked to what some people think of as student achievement. And so it'll be an interesting conversation for how we develop as a board and look at that and how we prioritize our resources and time. But it's a conversation that we absolutely have to focus on and have. So I think this is much wiser than trying to go off and do something else, but really taking the time. My only real concern is I'm not sure we're going to find 2 days before the end of everyone's term. But if we can make the commitment to doing that, then there's hope. So I'm game.
Board Member Jackson?
I just, it sounds fantastic, but if I can just have a little bit more clarification on, and not only for me, but for the public who no doubt is going to be questioning this. Can I just have a little bit more clarification on how this training is different than what we are bringing in with Attuned?
This training is going to be focused on us specifically. This is for us. So we're working on ourselves. We're setting ourselves. It's us and the internal work that we need to do. The other work that's coming in from Attuned is more at a, how would you describe it, Board Member Gonzalez? It's more systemic. It's more of a systemic approach to the district itself. And this one is to us as a governance team and how we fit into that systemic piece. And there's so we're going to be able to understand ourselves so we know how to insert ourselves over here. That's how I see it.
So kind of like working in tandem.
And that was a concern that I had, because I did explain that to Cindy, that was a concern I had, because we were going to start this process with Attuned and we were going to be doing this, and can we be doing it in tandem, or do we need to wait for the other first? And she said, no, because the board is the one that should be setting priorities and really communicating over to Attuned. So while Attuned is doing all of and there's going to be a lot of front end work on their side. They're going to be doing that instructional dive. They're going to be looking at all this stuff. So they're not going to be ready for those pieces, but we have to be ready when they're ready to understand what the priorities are we're sent. So we're going to have to get ourselves going within this next first 6 months so that we can be ready for that part after Attuned finishes their pieces.
Okay. And so I'm sorry if I missed it in your conversation. How long do you anticipate that this training for us will work? Do you think we will be ready in time so that when it comes time for the Attuned aspect, is our training a 2-month training, or is it, I'm sorry, you said it was a 12-month training. As I'm speaking, I'm remembering this. Okay.
I think about it in phases. The first phase is going to be the hardest phase, because that's really where we're going to have the 2-day retreat, really sit and start to set some priorities for ourselves too. And Cindy can describe that a little bit more, but it's more front end work. That's the hardest work for this one. And then there's the monthly coaching side of it.
So does this, I guess, Brenda, this might be a question for you then, does this, because we are getting credit, does this kind of remove us from NMSBA trainings for a year?
No.
It's a deal.
Great question, Courtside.
Nice try.
Board Member Courtney or Jackson, I'm sorry. You still do need those mandated credit trainings, or those training credits. So it would be, that's why we've left all of that in the budget. So it would be a combination of the two.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm with Board Member Peterson over here. I mean, if we can start focusing on systems and not necessarily more programs, but if this can help us become more efficient and it can work seamlessly with what we have going on with Attuned and helps us to focus on student outcomes, I'm for it. Is that what you do?
Board Member Villarado,
let's do it.
So I get the 2-day retreat, which I just know how difficult that's going to be for us to find 2 days between. We can't even find a few hours. So that's going to be a tough one. The second question I have is monthly. We'll have to do things monthly. So how much time is going to be required for us monthly, individually, and also maybe as a group?
So time-wise, it varies a lot. There will be a number of things that you do as a group, and those I believe can be scheduled at your, perhaps when you're already scheduled to have meetings, have your regular meetings perhaps as part of that meeting, or a work session afterwards. Not exactly sure how how your meetings play out through the month. I'm not completely aware of that, but it can work that way. And then the individual coaching is, sometimes that is just a phone call, a check-in, what have you, to make sure that everything is running smoothly, make sure that whatever activity we might have done, whether it be an agenda evaluation or some other piece of the governance improvement processes or the work that you'll be doing, just to make sure that you're clear on the how and the why and all of that all the way along the way. And then some of the coaching, as was mentioned, will also be in working with superintendent and cabinet members, just to make sure they have the support they need for whatever pieces they might need to provide to support all of you.
So it varies. So we don't know.
It varies.
2 hours a month, or we really don't.
Right. And it'll be, and that'll be something that we'll put together a timeline of those things that you'll be able to look at and review, give some feedback to, or ask questions about before you would adopt the timeline that we would be following over that 12-month period.
Okay. And then also my concern will be, because we are spending taxpayers' money. So let's say something happens and we don't do the work, and then we owe the Council of Great City Schools money back. How much could be the most that I just don't think that would happen, but I always like to be prepared for how much we would have to pay you back, because people should know.
That I think I will need a moment to find the answer to that.
Okay. And us not doing the work, what does that mean? Like we skip one lesson, like we don't take the phone call, we don't check. Like, I don't know what that means.
No, so it's very much being, there's sometimes where something might be scheduled, there might be some sort of, there might be some reason that something happens that something might need to shift for good reason. And those things we're going to work with you all with. But if it is something where it's absolutely, the board is just stopped moving forward on the work completely, that's where it's more of an issue as far as the agreement goes. But we do our best to work with you all to do. The other thing that happens is we will do monthly check-ins with the board president, just to make sure that we are set for whatever the next month's activities are, and see if there's any shifting that needs to be done at that point in time. Sometimes things also will take longer, and it's not a matter of the board not doing the work. It's just that the time that we estimated that it would take at that front end, maybe you need longer to do it, to accomplish it, and then that will shift the timeline as well, and that's okay, as long as there's continued forward progress and not just a matter of not doing it. So it's not completely, we're going to give you a timeline and those dates are, dead set. We won't work that date's that date. We're going to keep working along with you so long as there's forward progress.
And Board Member Muller-Aragon, I got the impression it's like if we just abandon it. So if we don't come to agreement, so let's say, we start to not resolve issues, or we can't come to consensus or come to agreement on ways that we want to move forward. And there's a lot of, dissension, and it's just not pulling together. that, and we're not committed to like even trying to work through those things, that would be, we're not committed to working around our governance. So I got the impression from Mr. Crabbill is like if the board got so disruptive with each other that we just weren't even willing to engage with each other, which I just don't see that from ourselves, that's considered abandonment. Like there's not even like it's not productive at all. But I have a feeling that our sessions will be productive because we're very productive, right? If we're going to give up our time, we're going to be productive. So I got the impression it was around that kind of idea.
Okay. If you could just let me know what it would cost still, because I think everybody should know. If you found that, if you haven't, and you can get it to us later, that's fine.
Okay, yeah, that might be something I need to check in with Mr. Crable about.
Okay, and then to Miss Yeager. So I heard all these, make sure that you recycle, make sure this, make sure that. And that, of course, just makes me uneasy that we're not overflowing with this extra money that we're trying to find it. Right. I mean, we're going to take 3,000 here, 4,000 here, a little bit here. So we're really working hard to try to find that money. And what if something happens that we really, truly, truly need, and then the money isn't there?
So Madam President and Board Member Mueller-Aragon, we have this issue every year because our budget is close. But I think that the things that I chose are things that we don't have to do this year. So I think you're fine with the 20,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Board Member Tapia Romero, do you have any?
I do. I'm just excited. I'm like, let's do this. Let's make something happen and move forward. So, I'm confident that we're going to come up with a plan and see some outcomes of our own going forward.
Board Member Dominguez.
I'm on board. I think this is what we signed up for. And let's roll up our sleeves and as Board Member Tapia Romero would say, party.
All right.
It's going to be a party.
So do I have a motion?
This is Crystal. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the training and support from the Council of Great City Schools.
And I'm happy to second that.
Jaeger, can we have a roll call, please?
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller-Aragon.
I will abstain just because we don't have that number. So sorry.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
And Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. All right. So our next item is, I know this is going to be a hard one for me to say here. So we're going for approval of the consent calendar items, except that we moved some items out, and I know I have that somewhere.
Would you like me to?
Here they are. Okay, yeah. So except for AD1, A and C, J13 and JL1, right? Or AD1. Okay.
J13.
And J13 and JL1. All right. So I think what we need to do here is we'll have to have a motion for approval of the consent calendar items except for those, and I think we can go ahead and have a discussion about those so that we can see, and we'll approve those separately. So may I have a motion to approve with the items that we said that we would remove from the agenda?
So moved. This is Barbara.
Second, this is Danielle.
All right, Ms. Yeager, can we have a roll call, please?
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller-Aragon.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. All right. So let's move on to the first item that was removed, which is AD1, firearms prohibited. Do we have discussion on that?
So, Madam President, I asked to have it removed because in our policy committee meeting, we added language to the firearms prohibited I can read that language if you like. It's secure firearm storage is an essential part of home safety. If a decision has been made to bring a gun into a student's home, parents, guardians can make the home safer by storing any firearms unloaded and locked with ammunition kept in a separate place. Research has proven that this simple practice can help prevent unintentional shootings, gun suicides, and other tragedies that can result when kids and teens gain access to guns. For more information, see besmartforkids.org. And the reason why I asked that it be pulled is that there was an omission in our packets. So we didn't receive in our packets the language with that addition. We didn't receive the language for AD1 or for JI3, which just had the same language. And, you know, at the time of the policy meeting, there was discussion about, no, we don't have any teeth to make this happen in a school. It's really more a statement of best practice and a plea, if nothing else, a plea to the community to play their role in keeping our kids safe. And so I just wanted to make sure that what we're approving contains that language.
Okay. And so for you, it was just the confusion that it wasn't included with these items pulled out, and you just wanted the clarification that it includes that language. And I believe that's what what was included in that. Is there any other discussion or any other confusion on that?
I mean, I just wanted to, we received like so many emails, and it was like a robo email coming from one email address without any real personal experiences added to it. And still, again, I'll say that this policy narrative, it just runs contrary to the Supreme Court ruling in New York. I think it was New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which gives all the right to self-defense. And so it still runs contrary to what, and I understand what Member Gonzalez had said. It's just kind of letting us know that, letting people know this is just how we may feel. But when I'm looking at all of those emails, without any personal experiences added, it was hard to think that people were really thinking about what has happened to them and what has happened to other people. So I'm going to just speak of personal experiences and add that, and speaking to home safety, because that's what we're talking about in this policy. We're talking about home safety. How are we keeping home safe, which we have no jurisdiction over and no ability to enforce it. So I can say several years ago, we had two of our daughters living at home, as well as myself and my husband. It was somewhere about 5 o'clock in the morning when my husband heard someone come into our home through the garage entrance. Our room was about 6 feet away from that entrance. Our daughter's rooms were on the opposite end of our home. He told me when he heard it, he wanted to verify that it was one of our children. And so he knew we know what we always did to verify it was one of our kids, and he knew it wasn't one of our daughters. So he told me, call 911, which I did, which took him forever to get there. He went and he grabbed his weapon. He loaded it, knowing there was an intruder in our home. Our kids lived there. They eat there. They slept there. They were happy there. And if they were sleeping, they were going to be an easy target. As I've been told and heard this past weekend, is 100% of the time somebody with a weapon will kill a non-moving target. That's my family. They're my daughters. whose rooms were on the other end of the home, the direction that that criminal was walking, that intruder was walking. That is my family. It's my family. And you should not be able to decide on a narrative to policy before you have facts or have lived what I've lived through. What is stated concerning the firearm storage, having the weapon locked up and the ammunition kept somewhere else, where would that have left? Where would that have left me? Where would that have left my family? Because I'm going to do anything to protect my family, the family that I love, that none of you do. But just pretend that was your family. And yes, if we didn't have a weapon, I know that Member Peterson said this a few days ago, that are we expecting to throw pencils and erasers at somebody with a weapon? Yes, we would have. If we didn't have one, we would have thrown whatever we had, our pillows, our pictures, whatever it is that we had. But I don't know how we could overcome someone like that and how it was possible for us to meet force with equal force, because we didn't know that that intruder had a gun or didn't have a gun. Those are my daughters. And I will do anything, and I know every parent out there would do anything to make sure that they are going to be okay. The criminal who broke into our home, so everybody knows, we found out later had already killed two young people. And those prints that the police took at our home matched the prints of this murderer. That's who was in my home. And you're telling me that I can't protect my own family, that I have to leave my weapon that is just used for protection for times like that, that no one ever expects to happen, and leave it locked up and leave our ammunition in a different location that we could have never got to. It takes 13 seconds for someone walking quickly to get from that garage door that that criminal entered to get to our daughter's room. 13 seconds, 4 seconds to get to our room. And I know exactly how much time it takes to get from every entrance in my home to my daughter's rooms. I know exactly, because that's what a good parent does know. My family could have been victims that night as well. But it seems like a lot of people don't want to hear that and don't seem to want to care about families like me, because it's not just me who has had to face that. But I know that that night we did right by our family. And I'm still here alive to speak for every family's safety. And I won't ever apologize for loving my family, for keeping them safe, and for carrying a weapon and carrying out my duties as a parent. I don't know that anybody would want that murderer to hurt my family. And I don't know why he ran out the door when my husband came out. I don't know if he heard my husband load our weapon. He got away with tens of thousands of dollars and a whole lot of stuff, but you know, I don't care. But little did I know that we'd lose one of our precious daughters not long after that night. But at least I can say I had my family of 5 intact for a little while longer. And I think that, you know, what that person did, he took away somebody else's kids, and that should matter to all of us. And I mean, I would not like to have this in there, this narrative in there. If we have a narrative in there, we have to realize this isn't the only thing that happens and the only way that kids get hurt. They take their parents' medications, they take chemicals that they shouldn't. So if we're really caring about storage, it should include everything and not just that, if that's what you want to do. And I would say, this is what I would say: secure firearm storage is an essential part of home safety. It is the responsibility of the firearm owner. We are good firearm owners. we make sure nobody can get to them. Those owners should ensure that not only guns, but harmful chemicals and medicines in the home are stored where they are inaccessible to children or other unauthorized persons. For more information on secure storage options, see projectchildsafe.org or besmartforkids.org. So now you know a little personal experience from me and why I feel how I feel. And I'm glad for what I did.
Thank you, Board Member Muller-Aragon. Any other comments? Board Member Gonzalez.
Yeah, I just want to thank Board Member Muller-Aragon for sharing her personal story. And I'm sorry that that happened to you and to your family. And also acknowledge that behind every single email that we received, not just over the last week, but I think over the course of the last couple of weeks and months, also has a story. So it may have been an auto-generated email for many of them, but that doesn't deny or negate the fact that the people who were in our board meeting earlier tonight, the two that remain, I think many that are watching online and throughout our community, do have personal experiences with gun violence. And not just those community members, but in our own schools. And I think specifically about Benny Hargrove and how he died. And as I said in the last meeting, we should be doing far more to prevent gun violence in our communities. I think it is incumbent upon us as community leaders to do this as the bare minimum to prevent guns getting into the hands of students and being brought into our schools. It's a community safety issue. It does not, this language in here does not mean that people are not allowed to have weapons in their home. It does not mean anything but an encouragement that they should secure those weapons and the ammunition in a way that is recommended by experts in the broader community, but also in the medical community. And so I think it's incumbent on us to listen to what we heard, I think loud and clear from our constituents, but also from the medical community and beyond about this best practice. As I said before, there is no authority for us to be able to enforce this, but I think it's critically important that we support this policy, and I would move for approval.
I'll second that motion with the clarification that it includes both AD1 firearms prohibited and JI3 student possession of a firearm.
Thank you. And, I would also just add too that I think part of our role as community leaders too is to also promote the best practices around public health and gun safety and violence prevention. The messages that we're promoting here is really to protect the public and public health. And it's a public health message. It's the same as, things that we're saying around for children around, I'm at a loss for anything like just that comes up, wearing your seatbelts, to drowning, to the messages that we have. So if you have a pool, please make sure that it's safe and that, you don't have kids. There's nowhere in this that we're saying you cannot own a gun, that you cannot that we're calling out people as irresponsible gun owners. A responsible gun owner will follow these. And what we are hearing across the country on this conversation is that there's this respect for responsible gun owners, and responsible gun owners are coming forward and also saying, yes, these are strong public health messages that we adhere and we want to support. So I like that it's another little place that we can just put some additional information in there just to remind our families and our students about ways that they can promote their safety in their communities, safety in their homes. And so, and I'm sure that that's a personal conversation with family members, and I honor that, and we'll leave it at that. But there's no way that we're dictating something to families that they must do. So I think we have a motion for A and C. We can vote on that, and then we'll take up the next one. So is there any other discussion on this? Go ahead, Board Member Tapia Romero.
So for clarification, I know Board Member Muller-Aragon just added like an I don't know if it was like an amendment or an additional part that you felt okay with. Are we, do we object that? Like, does the board, when including medication and things of that sort that she said, to reach out, I don't remember the right verbiage you used, to rephrase the policy as it's written. Is the board not in agreement with what she just proposed?
My motion was to move forward with the policy as is, that are in here.
Right, but I'm asking a question to the entire board based on the statement she just said for the policy that she recommended. I'm not here to ignore it. I'm actually asking the board as a whole if we're objecting what she just recommended.
I think what our motion was is a motion on the language as it was written, and we had a second. So that's where we are. There wasn't a motion to adopt the new language. So we have a motion on the table to approve the policy as it was written, and we have a second, and that's what we would take a vote on.
I understand, but you're also asked for further discussion and questions from the rest of the board. Right. And I have yet to speak, so I'm asking a clarifying question on what Ms. Board Member Muller-Aragon stated.
But I think that would also, for me, it would be like I'd almost have to be giving an opinion on that, and I'm not sure that I'm ready to do that because I'm ready to vote on the motion as it is, as it's been stated.
Okay.
So just like a technical clarification, and not a opinion, but I think that the secondary language that Board Member Muller-Aragon offered, because this is a firearms policy, and so I'm wondering, because it included other language, that wouldn't necessarily pertain because this is specifically dealing with firearms. And so I almost wonder if that is something that we as a board think is important, that's maybe a statement that needs to be made in a different place because of the fact that this policy, and I'm stealing your, and the firearm, that I think some of the language, you said something that I thought, okay, that could work, but because it then includes prescription drugs, etc. Sorry, I can't totally remember what you said, but it doesn't pertain because this is a firearms policy.
So for clarification, and I'm just trying to wrap my brain because I really want to support it. Like because I believe we do need best practices and really inform families and students, in a healthy way. Just if she removed, and I don't know if you're considering that, to remove the medications or prescription drugs, what it was you said, is that language, the secondary language, Board Member Muller-Aragon, is that something you would feel would be comfortable with?
Well, it basically starts out, I think, the same way. Secure firearm storage is essential part of home safety. I think the only thing that was different is if you took out harmful medicines and chemicals. But I think that what was added that was a little different was where they are inaccessible to children or other unauthorized persons, which we know we shouldn't have people that have, are felons that have a gun that have access to it. There are other people that shouldn't have access to it. So I think that's the only thing that would be different there. And they only added is I looked at some other secure storage options, and projectchildsafe.org was a really good one. I mean, they talk about identifying the warning signs that indicate a child is struggling or having suicidal thoughts, understanding how to respond versus react to warning signs, create a safe home environment that prevents access to lethal means. So it was that was just a good it was a good place to go as well, besides the Be Smart for Kids.
Sorry, so can I jump in here again just real quick? Okay, so Board Member Muller-Aragon, okay. So where we have right now, it says if a decision has been made to bring a gun into a student's home, comma, parents and guardians can make the home safer by storing any firearms unloaded and locked, comma, with ammunition kept in a separate place, comma. Now say where
they are inaccessible to children and other unauthorized persons.
Period. Would that?
I mean, that's not okay with me just because I know what would have happened to me that night.
Yeah.
If my ammunition was stored somewhere different.
Yes.
That I had 5 seconds, less than 5 seconds for that person to get into my bedroom and 13 seconds to get to my daughter's. I would have never made it if it was stored somewhere completely different. Do I store my firearms safely? Of course I do. Do I keep them away from children or anybody who shouldn't have them? Of course I do. But I would have never got there. I would have never got there in 13 seconds to do that if I had to go somewhere else to get ammunition.
No, I totally agree. And so what I'm thinking, because these are 3 separate phrases, I'm wondering if that last phrase would speak to your concern, because it's saying, you know, unlocked and loaded, ammunition in a different place, and also, you know, away. I'm wondering if having that third phrase in there would speak to your concern, but also addresses the language that is already there that is important to the other board members as well.
I just don't think it would change it, Madam Secretary. I just don't.
Okay.
And I just want to say that I think we have to put the context of where this is going to be. It's in a student handbook. It's pretty dense. There's a lot to get there. And really, quite frankly, I think the message is just, if you've got a gun, make it safe. That's really what's going to be the takeaway here. I don't see the other narrative behind all that. It's just that if you have a gun, make sure it's safe, and that's it. And I think that's the narrative that's included in there. So I want to be really cognizant of that, because now if we were leading with a gun violence prevention strategy and there were some things, I think that would be really different. But this is a student handbook with a lot of dense information. Families are kind of breezing through it really quickly and fast. I just want them to see, if you got a gun, be safe. You know, here's be smart, be safe. And that's really the message that we want to carry within that. It's just, if you choose to have a gun in your home, just make sure that it's locked, make sure that it's safe, so that it just creates safety for the family members in your house as well. Because I will agree 100% with the statistic around the number of children that die by suicide in our state. It is lethal, that ones that end their life, it's with a gun. And that is a reality, and that is a fact. And so we also just need to pull that out there. And I think it's a cause for pause is all we're trying to do. It's just a cause for like, oh, let's think about that. That's it.
So with all due respect, and thank you for all that, may we proceed?
Yes.
I think we have a motion, a second.
So Ms. Yeager, let's just call for the vote, please. And this is for voting on A and C.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
No.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
No.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. All right. So now we're going to move on to item G, JL1, which is the student drug and alcohol use. And I think we just had some questions on this one. I'll turn to you, Board Member Peterson.
Okay, I'll just say, I know there's been some concern expressed from especially some nurses and community members about making sure that Narcan and whatever other overdose antidote is available and in our schools, because unfortunately it is a reality. And so I think the concern is for clarification that we have what we need to save lives.
Right. So and I will add to that, because I know listening to some folks from the Health Equity Council is we removed the language in here that had the whole we will administer in the event of an overdose, and it was stated as part of this piece, and we took it out. And Dr. Bassett, you had a great explanation for us that night, and I was like trying to remember what that was, because it's inserted in our procedural directive. So I guess for the community listening, it doesn't mean that we don't administer those things anymore. It's just not stated in this particular piece here. And could you explain that again?
Thanks, President Montoya Cordova, members of the board, and Superintendent Elder. That's correct. We still have a procedural directive around the administration of an naloxone that's updated that y'all just reviewed. And we had the nursing director clarify some things about naloxone and how we acquire it. That's why we updated that procedural directive, so it's still active. And when we updated that procedural directive, it cross-referenced the board policy about student and staff wellness. And it never actually cross-referenced this policy. So they were really not in alignment. And so this policy really wasn't the one that gave that one authority. It's up to you if you still want that vision statement in here. You're welcome to keep it in here. It's a simple like undo that delete. But it doesn't, even if you delete it tonight, it doesn't mean we're gonna stop having naloxone available in schools for kind of worst case scenarios.
And I think that was what the concern was from the public health community, is that does it take away the vision or the intention, the mission that, you know, the board has, is that part of that interventions would include that overdose piece. So perhaps we probably do need to just have it back in so that it remains in there, because I mean, are there any concerns from a policy perspective if we do keep that, the strike through language in there?
Board member Montoya Cordova and members of the board, I don't see any concerns with it. Dr. Muir and Cheryl Brubaker were the original people who requested to strike that to kind of just clarify and streamline, but I don't think it causes any policy conflicts to keep it in the language.
Any other thoughts, discussion on this? So could you just read out the language that that we struck through so that the board members are aware of what that language is?
Sure. The paragraph that was struck, well, the title on consent was just student drug and alcohol use, and we struck and overdose intervention, which we could retain. And then the paragraph that was struck says, Albuquerque Public Schools shall provide and maintain opioid antagonist medication for the treatment of suspected opioid. Sorry, I'm reading through strike through, so it's a little hard. Opioid overdose. Albuquerque Public Schools shall comply with all federal and state statutes and regulations, including training requirements for school personnel regarding its overdose intervention program. It's pretty straightforward. It's just basically saying we'll comply with federal and state regulations for overdose.
So Dr. Bassett, can you just, not right now, but can you send an email to all of us, just kind of restating why it was struck in the first place? Because I couldn't write fast enough, because we have a couple of emails that need to be answered. And so I just want to make sure that I understand why it was struck in the first place. I understand the cross-referencing and all that, but if you could just do a quick paragraph as you're heading out the door.
Board member Jackson, I'll just say, for the simple thing is we do have an administration of an naloxone procedural directive. It's still active, it's still in place. And that is really the only overdose intervention procedural directive we would have that would be relevant to this policy. And that there's been no effort to repeal that. So the administration of the naloxone procedural directive is still active. So whether or not it's in this policy or not, we still have a procedural directive, and that procedural directive cross-references actually a different policy about student and staff wellness.
So could it have just been cross-referenced here then as a procedural directive?
Yeah, I can add that cross-reference here if you want, if we keep the language. If we don't keep the language, it doesn't make sense to cross-reference it.
Remember, Gonzalez, do you have a preference? I know, because I'm looking.
I know. This little guy is saying, I don't feel strongly, and this little guy is saying, it feels important as a statement of our priorities as a board to make it clear that we, believe in following not just law, but also public health recommendations and best practice. So I guess I'll lean over with this guy.
Does that mean you're making a motion?
I will make a motion to reinsert the language that was struck around the administration of opioid antagonists.
And the title and
the title.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
Sabina Dominguez.
We're good? All right. Ms. Yeager, can we have a roll call on this, please?
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. All right. And let's see. Are we at the end? My pages are all weird. Okay. All right, so we will move on now. Our next item is board member comments.
Wow.
We have board member comments at this one if we'd like to make some. So I'll start down on this end with board member Dominguez.
Well, I wrote something up and I can't find it, but here it is. Here it is. Yeah, yeah. We attended the New Mexico, a few of us, the New Mexico School Board Association training up in Taos. And I have to say, I was so impressed. I was happily impressed, particularly, well, I mean, I thought it was just one workshop, but really it was the Friday morning. I loved the way they brought together the lawyer and the legal language along with a board president, and then I like referring to ourselves as newbies, a new board member. And it just provided for a rich conversation. Anyway, I'm always astounded by, I think that's just a state of being this first year. Lots to learn. And just when I thought I understood the Open Meetings Act, I attended this workshop and had some new knowledge. Anyway, I appreciated having my colleagues there. You know, it's great hearing the voice of experience. It matters. And we had a good time too, good dinners. So I'm just reporting that out and sharing that with everyone. And I look forward to partaking of those trainings with all of you.
Member Tapia Romero.
So it's crazy to see that we are already going to be entering our 8th month of our first year, our first for us newbies, as we're called, right?
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see kind of the direction we're already headed in and the new changes we're making. Particularly, I enjoyed even working with Ms. Armenta from the communications department to see that we're working, you know, more to get the word out through social media, through different videos, to really do our best to talk about why APS is great and all the fabulous things we're doing here. You know, it doesn't negate that there's areas that we're definitely going to work on and improve, but to see that we're starting to reflect on the opposite and really use the resources that we've had to be able to move forward. And, you know, so I commend the communications department and what they're doing, and just hearing a little bit on what I think it was Scott, someone said about, you know, how many impressions we have through social media and all the different platforms that are out there, and us starting to utilize that. So I'm grateful for that particular team. As we begin to approach the new school year, I think this last month, and particularly, we've had a few topics that were really personal and sensitive to a lot of people. And as we begin to make these decisions, it feels like sometimes you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And no matter what, it feels like there's always going to be a particular group that is not going to be happy with the decision we make. And this is where I could even continuing to stress to our constituents, like, your voice does matter. Like, there's been times when I thought I had a set decision, and based on the feedback that I got from everybody, it caused me to dig deeper, ask other questions that I didn't even think about, to make sure, am I really making the right decision, or, to be able to educate myself on all areas. So, I would just continue to encourage our constituents, regardless of what side you're on of the issue, to please talk to us, and give us the information. Personally, I believe when the message is personal, it does have a greater impact, because I do want to hear your story. I do want to hear your why, you're interested, or why you're passionate about a subject. So I can make a well-informed decision, versus something that's just duplicated across the board. And that even reminded me, because I think I have been guilty of doing that with some of my legislators, because of certain organizations I'm a part of. They'll draft an email and I just copy and paste and sign my name. And I realize how more effective it is when it's personal and it's my story. Yes, it takes time to do that, but I'm just, looking at it now from the opposite end as the person receiving these messages, just to see the impact that it's making. So, I'm just going to continue to say, please tell us. And again, I want to hear both sides. And I will do my absolute best to make sure that I am making a decision, that is going to be best for everybody involved. And there may be times we get it wrong, or I should say I get it wrong, but I will continue to learn, and I will continue to educate myself and listen to people, so we can continue to move forward and make APS even better.
Thank you. Board Member Jackson.
I don't think I can say it better than Board Member Tapia Romero. Yes, it has been, we are starting to dive into some more challenging issues, and I look forward to it. I'm excited to have the governance models that we're going to be partaking in. And I'm thrilled with the work that we have done as a board with goal setting, and have the strategic plan initiative is off and running and according to plan. And then just because this is personal, because this is the policy that I wrote, I do just want to reiterate that the intention of the parent policy was simply to consolidate information into one place. And I hear all of the voices that came tonight, that have emailed me, and the parents that have reached out to say thank you. And I will continue to listen. We as a board have made we are going to be collaborative, but we are also going to include parents in what happens in the school. We are going to raise them up as voices as well. So I agree. Tell me your stories, and I might not always agree with them, but I'm always willing to listen. I really am. I'm approachable, and I'm willing to hear what you have to say. So I don't know that there's anything more, unless you want me to reread my policy statement, but I think it's posted on Facebook, so you can read it there.
Board Member Peterson.
Yeah, I also really appreciate Board Member Tapia Romero's comments. I mean, I think all along the board, we are in a position of having to make hard decisions. Legislators legislate, but we're the ones who have to implement and make it work. And because of the format of meetings, lots of times I think people don't realize that we really do listen. Even when we disagree, we appreciate people being here and we listen. We can't always vote the way they want us to, because and I speak for the former board, just like I'll speak the same for this board, that I think we truly work at making the best decision at any given time with the information and the resources and the community that we know and have. And I mean, I look forward to continuing the work with this board, because I think it's absolutely true with this board. I think it was also true of the former board, even with the disagreements that some people have had. You know, I think it's always with an eye towards the best for our students, and that it's heartfelt and honest. I mean, I'm honored to be a part of a board that I have felt like now and in the past that has always operated from an honest place of making the best decision we could at any given time. And so I really appreciate that. I can't think of anything else that I need to say except welcome back to all of the administrators, and we look forward to getting to know you and listening and engaging in that conversation as time goes on.
Great. Well, I wanted to state that I also appreciate just the ongoing engagement from the public on the parent rights and responsibilities policy, and encourage more. And so if there are any organizations that represent any particular constituency who would like to collaborate on a town hall or a listening session or a community conversation or whatever it may be, to make sure that your perspectives are actually being represented and heard, I would be happy to collaborate on that. I know Chair Montoya Cordova and I agreed to work with the district to put forth a process to carry it forward. And so just wanted to put forth a public ask for folks that do want to engage in that process. I also do want to thank the Moms Demand Action volunteers for their work in the community and for showing up tonight and for turning out all of the support for that policy. I think their work is so inspiring, and I really do hope that we, again, as community leaders and as a district, can do more to honor Benny Hargrove, and that his loss is not in vain. The last thing I wanted to say is I just wanted to express appreciation to each of you for the support over the last month and a half, or however long it's been, as I've tried to manage the unexpected loss of my mom. I didn't know that there was a moment of silence in the June 15th meeting until I read the minutes, and I deeply appreciate that. I also just appreciate all of the individual support, the fact that so many of you came to her services, not just board members, but Superintendent Elder and Dr. Duran Blakey and other APS community members. You came to the services, you provided me food and wine and grief resources. Josefina, you chaired the policy committee meeting in my absence. Ms. Yeager, you were at the end of the very first phone call that I made when we found her. And I just appreciate your support too. And there have definitely been times over the last month where I've wondered if I could carry forward in this position, just given how much she supported me. She is the reason I'm here. And I just take comfort in knowing that she's the reason I'm here. And that I will carry forward in her honor, because this is where she wanted me to be. But I appreciate the way that you all have become a second family, and I wouldn't have been able to get through it without you. So thank you to all of you, and to the board services office, and to the many cards and support and flowers that I received from the APS community. Thank you.
You know, it's been an incredibly wonderful 8 months with the new team. You all are doing a fantastic job of just digging right in, and I really appreciate the hard questions, the work, and the commitment to want to do the best that we can. But, you know, more importantly is the respect that we definitely have for each other. And that definitely comes through in all of our meetings. It's not lost on me that there are boards that don't function well. People don't get along and they're very disruptive, and we're not, that we really work to also model that important piece of, being respectful and being caring people and knowing that we work really hard together. And so I really appreciate that. I had some plans to talk about other things, but I can't. It's been a hard time because it was hard to watch you struggle. I want to say that. I can't imagine. So I know for all of us, it was hard to watch you struggle. And we're so grateful that you can lean on us and that you feel supported, because we want to do that. And I would just say that for all of the board members here tonight is that, and for Superintendent Elder as well, and Brenda, that, we just need to lean on each other. It's hard work. What we're doing is so important. It's hard work, and it takes a lot of effort out of all of us. And we just have to keep ourselves healthy and well through this process. And so I hope that we can just do a lot of that and honor each other and the decisions we make, and and the integrity that we all bring to the process. So thank you. The next Board of Education meeting will be held on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022 at 5 p.m. in the John Milne Community Boardroom of the Allison Bruce King Educational Complex, 6400 Uptown Boulevard Northeast, or virtually at aps.edu. And the next special Board of Education meeting will be held Wednesday, July 27th, 2022 at 5:15 p.m. or immediately following the Finance Committee meeting, also here in the John Milne Community Boardroom, or virtually online at aps.edu. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.